We are live. Happy, what is it, Tuesday? Transform Your Relationships Tuesday. I'm Laura Rubinstein here with the awesome and amazing Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hi, Laura. Here we are in this very interesting times and so many possibilities for talking about it. So, if you have a question, be sure to put it in the notes because you have a lot of time to think just now. So, even if it's off topic for today, feel free to put it in the chat and let's answer questions too.
Yeah, what's on your mind? Yes. And what's on our mind today and what came to mind was about creating safe space because we're all concerned about our safety physically, but I thought, what if we talked about our emotional safety because we're all experiencing heightened emotions now. And when we're in that stressful situation, there's the stress response, which is not always our most positive and productive, and also with the people around us. And it doesn't feel very safe then on the inside as well as out there in the world. So where can we start to create safe space? What does it mean? What do you think, Roberta?
Well, I think this is a wonderful time in the sense that it can help you understand what true self reliance is. And knowing that you can't go out and get things, or you can't rely on other people, or you may be able to rely on other people, but you're not going to see them in person. So, to understand self reliance means that really get in touch with the fact that you're creating your whole world, your whole response to it. Everything is in your head. So we need to be safe in our own head, right? And to be able to do that, we have to listen to the inner critics, the things that come up that want to say, "Oh, but what about this?" or "You're thinking crookedly," or an old message that a partner or parent has given us that is less than empowering. And we get this chance to say, "Who am I actually letting in my head? And do I want to give up real estate for them?"
Mm,
Right? And because safety means boundaries, who can get in and who can't. And we have to recognize that we're the doorkeeper there.
yes, boundaries within ourselves and without ourselves.
Yeah.
Managing that inner voice who's reacting to the other voices is kind of a dance, a thought dance. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It
I think,
is. And yesterday, last night, I was on Facebook and a woman put up this list of things and she called them boundaries. And I read them and I was horrified. And so I wrote a really big long response and then I condensed it to one sentence.
which is,
I think these are orders, not boundaries, because it was like you
oh,
should be doing this and you need to do that and all of this. And I thought, whoa, don't be confusing orders with boundaries, right? And so I put that out there, and the woman got back to me with a word salad, a million words long. And she said in the beginning, here's a little pet peeve. In the beginning, she said, "Well, dear Roberta, blah 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 blah." Oh, and dear Roberta, that's exactly the kind of knee-jerk cultural narrative I want to dispel. So I read the word salad, and I thought, okay, how am I going to deal with this? And so I wrote back and said, uh, don't call me dear when you're about to express that I am expressing a knee-jerk reaction to a cultural narrative. Is that a clear enough boundary for you? And she wrote back, yes, point well taken. And then she went on to justify her whole being in a even longer word salad. So I wrote, we won't agree on this. So then she wrote back and said all the reasons that it was unreasonable not to agree on this. So my point in giving you that example is that we are going to have this talk with ourselves about what is really so for us. Where do I stand on things? What is in alignment with my values? What is my intellectual concern? How do I see something? I mean, 100% I have to own that I don't I'm I don't know what's right. I'm not the arbiter of right and wrong and good or bad. It is my opinion.
But
It
you
is
do know what's right for you.
exactly, but this is where we get to be safe within ourselves is when I can say, okay, well that doesn't work for me. I don't have to tell her, she's wrong, but I can say for these reasons it doesn't work for me. And what we will learn is if we're safe with someone who wants to be telling you that their truth is a little more true,
Mm.
right?
Their truth
And
is the truth.
exactly, or at least more true than your truth,
That's
and
not safe. That doesn't feel
it
safe.
is not safe.
Mm-mm.
And so it's a good example of the kinds of things that can happen when we are really interacting in a digital space like we are right now, because that is kind of is an intellectual cyberbullying. Like, I'm right and you are wrong, and let me tell you all the ways. Well, it's important, I think, for us to not get hooked into that, because if we don't have a strong sense of self that says, I'm not here to live up to the expectations of other humans, I am here to live up to my own expectations of myself that are in alignment with my values, my vision for my life, and my beliefs about everything. And I don't just mean spiritual beliefs. I mean, we have beliefs about how the world works, how relationships work, how money works, how culture works. We have beliefs about all of that. So, this is a wonderful time to get in touch with yourself, to have this cocooning time to say, I'm going to take an hour a day to see what I really think about things, to see how I really feel, or to realize that I don't have to have, as she called it, a knee jerk reaction to something. Um, I can notice that I felt it. Like I wrote out a whole response to figure out what I was really wanting to say.
Sure.
And then I condensed it and thought, oh no, she doesn't need to know all that.
Right.
I'll just tell you that those feel like orders, not boundaries.
Yeah. And I think there's a really important distinction here. When you're setting a boundary, it's about what it is you need to take care of yourself, right? And it may involve another person, but it's not about demanding it from another person. It's if they can't meet that, then then that's says something about them. If you're saying, well, you need to serve me breakfast in bed every day, otherwise I feel unloved. It's like that's not a boundary, that's an order. And
Yeah.
but okay, so the how do you translate that into an order, into a boundary is, well, what do I need? I need my own space. I need to feel nurtured. How can I do that for myself? If you have a request, you can make it, but a request is something that um, is can be negotiated, and it can be counter offered and things like that. The boundary is, what do you need to stay safe, feel safe for yourself? So if you're ordering someone to step back, I mean, that's a boundary, like where you get a what do you call it, a restraining order,
Or even
because they didn't
now,
respect
like
yours.
I saw something on Facebook that said, when someone gets too close to you now, when you say back off, buddy, it's no longer rude, it's a public service announcement. But here, I'll give you an example, Laura, because I have the post right up here. So here's what this person wrote. She said, boundaries with your partner sound like. So I'll just give you the top three. Don't raise your voice when we're talking through an issue, it makes me shut down. Number two, I want you to let me finish speaking before you respond. Number three, stop sharing every dispute that we have with your family. It makes our interactions feel awkward. Okay, those are orders. A boundary would be like in the case of the first one, don't raise your voice when we're talking through an issue. It makes me shut down. A boundary sounds like, I recognize that I have difficulty when voices get raised and I don't think clearly, and I'd like to. Could we make an agreement that if we get into emotional content, that we don't talk until we're calm again? That's a boundary. That's saying, I recognize I'm having trouble. And we've talked about this so often. It's a personal weather report situation. A boundary is a true personal weather report situation. I'm having trouble hearing the content that I want to pay attention to when the volume goes up. Let's not talk about this for an hour and come back and revisit it. Okay, that's clear. But to say, don't raise your voice when we're talking through an issue, that's parenting. That is not a boundary. And I think we really need to be clear about that.
I think so too, and I think some people might say, well, um, but I'm saying, but it says the same thing, but the effect of it is completely different. One is making someone wrong and actually in a harsh, harmful way, like you're wrong. I need, and it's almost like you're screaming at them. Do you scream boundaries? No. You
Mhm.
set boundaries and you be more like a kindergarten teacher.
Well, that's it. You see, this list that she provided is parenting, not partnering.
Mhm.
You know,
But even in parenting,
yeah,
that's
you're
the
going
way.
to do it this way because this I'm right and you need to do this. That's a whole other thing than a collaborative conversation about how we can enhance the we, because these were boundaries for with a partner. So we need to be enhancing the we to make it a safer and safer place to talk about more and more emotionally intimate things. And if we get into the you should and you need to and back off, buddy, that is not going to enhance our emotional intimacy. Yes, are there times for that, but don't call it a boundary. That's an ultimatum.
So yeah, we have ultimatums, orders, and boundaries. Some may look very similar, but they sound very different.
Mm-hmm.
And the results you have by presenting them in the different ways are going to be varied. Because how do you feel when you get an order shouted at you? It makes you want to resist it more. When you set a boundary, it should, to me, if you're doing it in a more of a neutral without blaming, you're saying it's about me. This is what I need, and this is how I request it be done, or whatever. Then it's about me. If there's a reaction over there, I don't want to provoke, like I'm doing my best not to provoke a reaction. I'm doing my
Mm-hmm.
best to state what I need and then set that, set up the way of interaction that would make me feel safe, right? And some people don't care about other people's safety because they're too much reacting to their own stress.
Mm-hmm.
So if the personal weather report doesn't work, what do we do next?
Well, first of all, learn to make a personal weather report. But you brought up the word request, and I think it's absolutely perfect for what the problem is here. None of the things in that post on Facebook were requests. Like when you're trying to enhance the we, I've said this before and we've talked about it before that every relationship has three entities. It has me and we. And sometimes, me and me are going to take precedent, but always we have to think about how does it affect the we. And sometimes that we leaves both of the me's going, not my favorite, but it's what's in the best interest of the we. It will never be in the best interest of the we to give an order. Yes, you say to your child, get out of the middle of the street, there's a Mack truck coming. That's a different matter. You don't go and bound and bend down and say, honey, I think for your safety it would be really wise if we moved to the side of the road. You know, there's a difference there. But when we're dealing with thing requests, that's a whole other thing. Like I request a little more personal space is very different than saying, don't you come anywhere near me when I'm angry,
Yeah.
right? So we're asking for emotional maturity in order to learn to set real boundaries, not give orders, not be barking ultimatums. And we're talking about safety today. So if you love someone, learning to express in your communication, and as I've said so many times, in ways that are simultaneously honest and kind, is a huge skill,
Mhm.
right? If each one of us practiced in our head during this quiet time that we have, and maybe it's not so quiet for some people, because one thing I do want to really acknowledge is that some people are at home with hijackals, some people are at home with abusers. And this is a really, really difficult time for that. We're seeing a lot of research, a lot of information, not research, coming out about the increase in domestic violence calls and things that are happening. And if you happen to be housebound with a hijackal, I did last week's podcast on it and Save Your Sanity podcast, and I'm doing another one. And I will continue to do it on housebound with a hijackal, because if you're not safe with the people in your home, there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done, and this may not be the time to do it. So, if you're at home with somebody who is less than delightful, not just that they're less than delightful because they're stuck at home right now, but they are generally less than delightful, it's very important to fall into the neutral category. It's very important for you to just, okay, whatever, right? So that you're not poking hijackals. So again, it's a safety issue. But it is very important, even in those situations, to be able to give voice in a kind, honest way to say, oh, that's not the way I remember it. Or, to say something that allows you to be whole and in integrity with yourself. Don't say it in a way that says you're wrong. That's poking a hijackal. It'll never work for you. But it doesn't work with non hijackals either, because you said so rightly just a minute ago, Laura, that when you say that, everybody's hackles goes up. Why? Because we have subconscious conditioning that the mother or father is larger, and they come over and they say, you're doing that wrong. And we go right back into that child, and we don't like it.
Yeah, so if you want to actually set boundaries and not give orders that people resist, you want to have these collaborative conversations, use the personal weather report, make requests. And I love what you said earlier, which was, you wrote a response which was maybe a little reactive, and then to get out, to process your feelings, to really do the work of like, well, what is the message I really want to send here? Not what is the I think that what happens to us is in our reaction, even that's a reaction. The post that she wrote was a reaction. She's like, I want to demand these things because I'm not feeling safe and I'm not feeling honored and I'm not feeling this. And just going back and like, I'm this and I'm right and you're wrong. It just gets us stuck, you
Well,
know?
yes, and also, like, I was very aware when I read this and I wrote my response, and I long ago learned to write things in Notepad, not on the page where I might hit send,
Yeah.
right?
Don't accidentally hit that send button. Don't
Right.
do that.
So that I can do my processing, and then I can figure out what I really want to say. But I'm very, very aware right now, and I hope everybody is, that there is, of course, heightened stress and anxiety. So people are a little more hairline trigger. And if you can be the voice of reason, if you can be the one who says, oh, yeah, okay, this person may be scared, this person may be upset, this person may have lost their job. They could have done anything, and here's their energy that's coming forth here, which was really how I felt in two circumstances recently on Facebook, is that, okay, you're looking for a little power in your life and you think maybe you'll find it in social media. Okay, I'm going to just take it in context of the current cultural situation. I'm going to think that your shoulders are really inching up toward your earlobes, and you just want to be right, or you just want to have some power or whatever. And I don't need to respond with that. I'm okay. So it goes back to my earlier point, which is this is a wonderful time to get right with yourself. To say, am I expressing my values? Because I don't want to fight with people on Facebook. I have no need to. I have my opinions. I'm open to considering them. When people behave in defensive and maybe not pleasant ways, it just tells me who they are. I don't have to engage with that. But we have to be clear about who we are. And
We
this is a
do.
great time to find out.
We do. And it's a great time to find out. It's a great time to sit with your emotions and be emotionally generous with others. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you know everybody's on heightened alert. It's not just us, but how can we be emotionally generous with others and ourselves? And I think what you just said is about being emotionally generous with yourself. It's like taking time to feel what you feel that you're scared, that you're upset, that you're sad, that whatever that is, go and let yourself acknowledge it to yourself
Mm-hmm.
and then find the way out of there, not by just releasing the tension by hurting someone else. You know, in fact, it's emotionally generous to step back sometimes when you know you don't have anything that's going to take care of the we in this relationship, the we, the relationship, right?
Absolutely. I love that. Be emotionally generous. Because when you are emotionally generous, you're saying, I'm not involved entirely within myself. I can see the bigger picture. There are other people who have circumstances I know nothing about that they are responding, reacting to, are coming from. And they may well feel in the moment after they've done that, that, oh, I wish I hadn't. And if we can just allow for that and say, oh, maybe that person's under a lot of tension. Here's another one that happened yesterday. Somebody both you and I know put out on Facebook, there are no such thing as toxic people, and I'm paraphrasing. There are people who are going through a learning experience, a soul's learning experience on earth. And I went, no. They
They may be going through a soul learning experience, but they definitely can have a
don't need to
toxic
share
effect.
it. Yeah, they don't need to share the toxicity. So again, I wrote a whole lot because I know this person. I know that person wants to be treated in that way because they tend to have toxicity. And so I understood the projection, but I wanted to say something positive. And so I wrote, well, there may not be toxic people, but there are toxic behaviors and toxic relationships, right?
Right.
And so that moved the conversation forward, not with that particular human, because that particular human had to make another point, but it allowed for the conversation to go in another direction with other humans who chimed in,
Right.
right? So sometimes people, well, not sometimes, we're always dealing from our own base, right? So
Always.
whether or not we're living up to the expectations of other people, we're trying to please other people, we live from fear, we live from joy, whatever it is a demonstration of our own inner work to a great degree and what we have actually had put into our basic operating system. I think we can always use the computer analogy. When we're young, we're being programmed. And sometimes there's malware and viruses in there, but we don't know because we just got here. We're kids. And so it doesn't come out for a while because we're doing all the growing up and our brain is changing and we have different expectations and we need to succeed in school and we need to know what to do with bullies and then we need to have a plan and we need to go if we're going on to school and then we need to have a job and then we need to have kids and get married and we need to do all that stuff. And then by the time we kind of go, oh, I think I got it together, we go, whoa, where am I?
Who am I?
Who am I? And so that's what I'm talking about now is that if we just take a little time to say, am I expressing my values in the way that I'm even having conversations in my head? It's a really worthwhile conversation to have with yourself.
Taking time to have conversations with yourself, taking time to give yourself that distance. Um, I really appreciate the conversation today because it's just a great reminder. If you're feeling extra stressed, it's okay. And there's something to do about it. And I love that we do this show to remind ourselves and those of you watching. And thanks for the hearts and the love. And Sam, and there's been some other people here. Russell and Jayshree, thank you for your love. We love you. And this is what we're talking about is loving yourself more and loving others more. And yes, you can have boundaries, but do you want to make this to make yourself feel better doesn't mean making somebody else feel worse,
Yeah,
or
and we do want boundaries. You do
yes,
want healthy
yeah,
boundaries. Like this is where I start and you stop, and vice versa. That's very important. But if you express them in ways another human can't accept, can't
that's the point.
entertain, then you miss the opportunity. So it's that understanding yourself, then understanding how do I phrase something that is both kind and honest at the same time.
Hmm.
Let me get good at that. And then always use the personal weather report. Just talk about yourself. You're an expert on yourself, but you're not an expert on another human. So if you just say, there's what's going on within me, I'm wondering about this, or I have this feeling and I'm not quite sure where it's coming from, then you're inviting someone into your thought
Right.
processing. And that is so engaging. But if it's like, I don't like what's going on around here, okay, like now,
What am I supposed to do with that, right?
yeah,
Now I'm on
exactly.
high alert. You just told me this, and I'm like, I feel this way. So when somebody says I feel this way, and I'm just letting you know I'm hurt, and this is what it's like, do you need to say that? Or do you need to process it first?
I think you need to process it and practice. People ask me all the time when I'm helping people who are recognizing they're in toxic situations, do I need to leave? And I say, unless there's physical or sexual abuse, I've said it on this show before. No, you don't. What you need to do is to get help and then practice and prepare, because practicing and preparing is empowering. So, again, in this situation, I think it's important, Laura, for us to realize we need to practice and prepare. I need to go inside and say, okay, what's really going on with me? And then I need to practice saying what I'd like someone to know in a way that someone could probably hear. And we could have a productive conversation. But, when you blurt, you hurt. And we take that risk. Well, I was just so angry. I just said it. Yeah. Well, remember that that's the 10 for 1 conversation. You get angry, you say something, it's going to take 10 times more time to backtrack.
Right.
Better you should keep your mouth shut in the beginning and rethink it, right?
Takes a lot of restraint, but and a lot
Right.
of practice. And I love the idea of practicing, because not only does it really help you, it helps to ground you in what's your truth and where you really want to come from. And until it feels right, like really right and honest, kind at the same time, honest and kind at the same time, it's not, it's neither. It's a blurting and it's a hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And and sometimes that's all you can see because you're so wanting to react, and the only way you've practiced up until now is just hurting, is that stress response. So the practice is so important to get your mind in a whole new frame of thinking and feeling, that it really that you can embody it versus the old habit. You have to get out of that old habit. We are creatures of habits, and we are creatures of thought habits. And so, if we want better thought habits, we do need to practice, and we need to go within, and we need to practice this weather report. And we may not be great at it in the beginning, but it does happen. It does transform yourself if you can get really honest and kind with yourself and others. You know.
Right, and also in doing that, sitting quietly with yourself and processing, maybe journaling it or writing it down in a notepad like I did, um, it allows you to then say, what do I think about this? I don't need to go and try it out yet. I can say, how would I respond? Like many times I'll say to people, think about where you'd like to be in a conversation 5 minutes before or after you speak.
Hmm.
So, where would I like to be with this in 5 minutes? If I say this, will it take me there?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
I find myself, if I'm in writing on my notepad and I'm blaming or I'm shaming or I'm guilting or I'm judging somebody else, I need to get that all out until it's done and then say, okay, now what's the truth here? Because the blame, shame, the guilt is that stress response. It's that I don't want to deal with this and take responsibility for any part of this. If I put it on someone else, then I don't have to. And that
Exactly.
gets you nowhere, and that gets you, and I love the question to yourself, well, where do I want to be after 5 minutes after? Because if I go through that blame, shame, guilt, judging conversation of somebody, or just sharing how, just to get it off my chest type of thing, then does that get me where I want to go 5 minutes later? And if you're really not clear, super duper clear on it, start over.
Exactly. And so here we have time. Now, I'm understanding you got young kids and they're home, and maybe your partner's home, or you're under stress, or one partner's going to work and living in the garage and you're seeing each other, through the window. I understand all these stressors, but only do what needs to be done. I am really having a problem, Laura, with so many people making what they, I think, believe are motivating, encouraging expressions of all that you could get done and how you should be super productive.
Oh, yes, I'm so
Uh,
glad you're talking about this.
and please, you know, do not take that on at this time. I know that, it's all the things that you ever said you do if you have time. Yes, that's nice. But I saw a thing on Facebook the other day that said, I always said that I would do all the housework when I had time, and I found out that's not the reason. Uh, but but the thing is, don't get into some mode right now that says I should be super productive, because we're going through. I saw a lovely thing. We're going through moral fatigue right now, which is, wow, I've got a lot of decisions on my plate. I've got a lot of things to think about I didn't have to think about before. I can be tapping into my deepest fears that I didn't even give name to. They didn't rise up for a long time. I
Right.
mean, there's so much emotional content right now. And if you put a layer on top that says you should get everything done before you're out of quarantine, you are going to damage yourself. You are going to add stress to stress. And I just invite you to be kind to yourself, to be safe with yourself, that you're not putting something onto yourself that is an additional stressor.
Kind of wraps us up with the safe. Create the safe space for yourself, not a space to fail into, to pressure yourself into, to think that this you should be more productive during this time. There's a lot of energy out there, people, that is we are faced with. It's a new paradigm. We don't know. We are all kind of crawling through this together. It's okay to not feel productive. It's okay to give yourself a break and take that emotional generosity for yourself. Uh,
Absolutely. And Ram Dass says we're walking each other home. But I think you just said it. We're crawling each other home right now, crawling and sometimes hibernating, and all these things are going on. Please be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Just notice what's going on and be kind and generous to yourself, because then you will have kindness and generosity to give to others.
we love you.
We
Mwah.
do.
Virtual kisses
Mwah.
and hugs, but keep your hands away from your face.
I haven't been anywhere. I've been home for 3 weeks. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm in my ecosystem.
All is good. Take good care. We'll be back in a couple weeks.
Bye bye.